Let's move forward to number 4. Here we go.
For competency number 4, cultivates trust and safety. And the definition: partners with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. So this is not an antagonistic coaching relationship. And number 1, do you want to talk more about this?
The magic for me. This is that special sauce. This is the thing that often gets overlooked when we talk about coaching. Coaching becomes questions and goals and all of these things. And for me, this trust and safety, this is creating that safe space, and this is that magic. This is the magic in the coaching session for me. That the heart and soul, and everything else is happens within it, and this allows for anything powerful to happen. Is this number 4? So
foundation.
off my soapbox. Yeah.
I do want to mention one thing, though, that coaches need to be aware of, is that it's as much as you are a good listener, as much as you are present, that doesn't automatically assume that people are going to feel that trust and safety from the get-go. You still have to foster it. You still have to cultivate it. And that for some people takes several sessions, and so for some people it happens in the first session, and some people it takes 6 months. And so to be patient and not treat that as there's something wrong with you as a coach.
Right. And sometimes there's stages, like they'll go so far with you, and they either, and maybe they don't trust themselves on how they're going to share that with you.
Yes.
Well, but you should not get into overthinking mode in that place.
Yeah.
And each sub competency, I think, is a little guide for us that allows us to cultivate this magical space. All right, next one. Shall we?
Someone else can read this time.
Seeks to understand the client within their context, which may include their identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs.
If we could just hit the nail on the head with this one, I think so much of everything else that we seek to do in the coach-client relationship will go so much more smooth. Because this is like, and when Brooke was talking about this, is just so much of, and I said foundation, the cultivates trust and safety. It's almost like a step 1. Let's start here before we even think that someone's going to be able to open up to us and let us see what's already inside. So number 1 is just so important when we can meet someone where they are, and that respect and empathy and all of that. So I think number 1 is super important.
Well, and that's, another thing we say in the class 101 class is that you don't have to, it's important to have that beginning part of the go learn, the greeting, the ownership, finding out, who are they, what's important to them, why is it important to them. I think when we rush things and we lose that opportunity for connection, then we're not gonna be able to cultivate the trust and safety.
And I really want to emphasize the seeks to understand, because we don't want to assume, right? We don't want to assume anything about our client. So this is this curiosity piece. This is this, we have to know that our client's a human being that exists within a whole bunch of other, systems in their life, a bunch of different experiences, beliefs, identity, environment. And though there may be elements of them that remind us of ourselves, we cannot assume that anything that they are or their experience is the same as ours. So we have to be in this space of curiosity and seeking to understand and learn without that assumption. So critical. And really
not come from the aspect of, oh, I've done that, I already know all about that.
Oh yeah, me too.
Or, for clients in my marketing business, I would always get these very women that had a lot of things that reminded me of me, which is, a strong, independent woman who is maybe quirky, artsy, creative, and wants to be a little different and bring that piece forward. But I can't assume that because there are elements where we relate to one another, that I know everything about them and what they want. I have to be in a space of curiosity and learning, and really learning who they are as an individual. And that was really fun. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of this process, is learning about all the different elements.
It's boring if we know it all.
Yeah. And it's like, yay, we get to know something new. And, you know, it's a fun, creative space to just sort of be in with other people. So
Totally.
Okay.
Anything else in this space, or shall we move to the next?
I think go to the next, because I think it's going to incorporate it anyways.
Demonstrates respect for the client's identity, perceptions, style, and language, and adapts one's coaching to the client.
This is that compatibility piece too. It comes right back up. So that's why this is all underneath this this heading, right? The same heading of co-creating this relationship, because this is part of that as well.
This one is big. It comes up in class where coaches will say, you know, well, I don't want to lose myself, or what about this or that? I say, it's not about losing yourself, but it's highlighting the client, right? And this is that idea where I stress the not me, not mine. And I always tell coaches, I say, notice how I am versus when I do a demo. I'm not acting. It's just I'm more neutral, because I want to meet. I don't want to smother the client with me. I want them to flourish. So the spotlight becomes the client. And that's part of that, Brooke, what you were saying. They may have different, the way their personality, all these things. I don't want to squash that with my personality. So I maintain a neutral position, right, and posture, because they feel more comfortable. And I still have those chances where I meet in the middle. We, you know, relax, that solar. But at the same time, I don't want in any way me to smother them.
If we think about it as, you know, we're both shining a light, right? But we don't want our light to shine brighter than our clients. So
Absolutely.
So what we're doing is we're essentially, you know, just dimming it down a little so that our clients' light can shine in, and so we want that to happen. And then we have this mirroring, and this is where this style and language, and we begin to use the words our clients use so that they can hear it for themselves, so that they can hear, because sometimes that's what it takes, right? Is us speaking in their language, not only for them to understand better, but for them to also hear what they sound like. Because sometimes we don't always hear that, right? And doing it in their language is going to be so much more powerful than inserting yours when it comes to making that connection and cultivating this relationship and trust and safe space. All right. Are we ready to go to the next one?
Number 3.
Acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching process.
So that's interesting too, because it's a scary slippery slope sometimes for me, right? Because I think acknowledges is the word is chosen very deliberately. Acknowledges and respects. It doesn't say gives praise or celebrates. I use that word. I was like, oh, I shouldn't have used that word. That's a big piece here, right? We want to be able to acknowledge and respect, but without giving applause.
I think it honors who that client is. It's the honor of who they are, what they've brought to the table, and how they want to show up. That becomes that first acknowledged space that, yes, we matter, but in this space, it's about them finding their matter.
Yeah. I in class, I always say, when we're talking about sincere validation in the coaching space, I always say this: just ask yourself, is it acknowledgement versus embellishment? Acknowledgement is what's there. I don't have to add on to it. I don't have to go into a full welcome to my TED Talk motivational speech, which I would love to do, but I don't have to, because I'm just acknowledging what's already there, what the client has presented. So that's one of the things I absolutely think is important: acknowledgement versus embellishment.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
Well, that brings us back to the topic of sincere validation, right? When you're able to talk about what you see them as doing without embellishing it, just saying what you're sharing with me, I see that arriving on time is really important to you, right? Instead of, oh yeah, good job, you like to arrive on time, yeah, me too. But it's just acknowledging the work that they're doing in the session, the work they're doing in their life, and affirming it, but in the sense of sincerely, and with that, about the sincere validation, not the compliment, not the praise.
Yeah, and I just said, love it.
So they can build it for themselves and not rely on us for it.
We're not in a coaching session here, so I can tell you guys that I love everything you're saying. It's fantastic. Also, it's as simple as just acknowledging and noticing when your clients, maybe things are going right and they're not acknowledging it, right? Those little pieces where they're being harder on themselves, but they're not acknowledging the work that they have done, and just bringing that back up to the client, and reminding them, and sort of shining that light on the things they have done, maybe when they're in a space of, I didn't do X, Y, or Z, right? And respecting the work that they're doing. And that's where this piece comes. It's not, not everything is easy. It's not easy to sometimes do what they have set out to do, and respecting their process and what is happening. So shall we? That dovetails beautifully, I think, into the next one. But Jen?
Say, get in the habit of the language. I want to acknowledge you for that. Practice it like with your friends and family, and then it'll just flow natural in the coaching space. Because it's not something we normally say, right?
Agreed.
We normally say, good job.
Well, I think you at that point, you could actually even say, oh, hello, Coach Pimentel. Nice to see you. That's not what I was going to say, but you could actually ask them, if you were to acknowledge yourself for something right now, what would that be? Right? So it doesn't even have to be on us to ask that. So, all right, shall we go to number 4?
Let's do it.
Shows support, empathy, and concern for the client. Now, that doesn't mean, oh no, are you okay? Oh my gosh, what's good? Yeah. Who else wants to say anything?
We don't need to give hugs. We don't need to rescue. We don't need to do anything but show up with care, concern, candor, kindness.
We don't even need to hand a tissue.
I think
it's kind of hard to do when you're doing virtual coaching anyways, but
this is one of those things where subtlety is so tremendously powerful. I think it's when we, just by being present, curious, asking questions. Coaching is showing concern, and that's all it needs to be, right? It doesn't need to be this over the top. Just by being curious and interested and respectful, all of this is we're doing it. We're doing this. We're showing support, empathy, and concern right there.
Yeah.
Built in, kind of, at least for me. Next, we have 2 left. 5 minutes. I think we can do it.
Yeah. Number 5, acknowledges and supports the client's expression of feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, and suggestions. And I'm just going to say right away, one of the things I noticed in the one-on-one class, when people are starting their practice coaching sessions, sometimes they jump right in when a client starts crying. And it's like, whoa, slow down, pause, take a deep breath. Something's here for you. You might be uncomfortable with these feelings, but this is your client's form of expression. And it's so important to not, stifle that, to not stop that. That's why we say, don't hug, don't touch, don't hand the tissue. Just pause and be quiet, be silent, and allow your client to express themselves in the way that they need to in that moment. Mm-hmm.
I think maybe new coaches.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think maybe new coaches have a tendency also to maybe identify their client's blocks for them sometimes when the client is expressing a perception or belief of theirs. And the coach might, oh, that sounds like a block. That sounds like it's sort of impeding the progress. Let me say something. It's not really the coach's job to necessarily point those out. It's the client's job to identify what it is they want to work on, what their blocks are. And if their beliefs and perceptions are wrapped up into that, that might be seen as not supporting their perceptions and beliefs by calling that, hey, that's something's wrong with that belief. Something's wrong with that thought. Let's change it to try to support your goal. That's not really what we do as coaches.
I want to sort of talk into both of those spaces quickly. I think Misha's point is so valid when it comes to crying. I think the same thing can be said for silence. Absolutely. I think the same thing can be said for frustration, for and all of these things that might make us uncomfortable. That's our bias. That's our thing. We've got to always stay in check with that. And I think to Anthony's point, early on in coaching, I would have this moment where, oh, I see the solution. I see I need to take them this way. I see that, these things. And I wouldn't say it out loud, but in my head, those wheels got set. And what am I doing in that moment? To Anthony's point, I am not right now. I just have gone into a advice space in my own head, right? I may not be saying it, but I have gone into a biased space in my head, and I've lost my curiosity. And I learned also, if my client isn't ready to go there, they are not going to go there. Even if I see that is the space they need to go, there might be a lot of other work that needs to be done before they go there, right? And they may not even ever need to go there. That might be a place I needed to go. And I'm assuming that they need to go there too. So anytime those things go off in my head, I have to do a self-check moment where I'm like, be curious right now. Stop, get out of my own head and be curious. That is a big sign for me. And that, Anthony, you brought that up. You're bringing that up right now is completely relevant to what you had just said is we might see or assume our client is what something they are is something. But that right there is a big bias, a big assumption, a big label we are placing. And that's a big red flag for, hey, stop that, be curious.
So the question becomes, does it serve me, the coach, or does it serve my client?
Can I share something that Dan shared that was like life-changing for me?
Yeah.
He said that you're not just holding space for the client to have emotion. You're holding space for you to be present with someone else's emotion.
Yeah.
That was just like,
Totally.
oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's finish it off then with number 6.
Well, one quick thing too. I think a big piece as you're going, those are 102 students. I want you to reflect back to this once you have gone through the perception portion of 102, because we do have and I think that this is a really critical piece. There's a reason that perception piece is in 102, and this will really speak into that. And that's all. All right.
Number 6 demonstrates openness and transparency as a way to display vulnerability and build trust with the client.
What does that mean? This is a heavy one, and I'm okay with us being a little over on time for this because there's a lot here. So
be human.
This one's tricky though, because in 101 we kind of talk about don't share all of who you are in your session. Make this about the client, not about you. But yes, like Mike just said, we do need to be human. But where is that? It's a fine line. So who wants to?
And the way when I'm thinking of this too with transparency as well, for especially in 101, I stress this, it's okay to make a mistake. I always say progress, not perfection. So in a coaching session, you may say, hey, hold on, Misha, I'm sorry. That's not the question I wanted to ask or maybe should have asked. So exactly. It's okay to be vulnerable in that space, because when we talk about building trust, that builds trust and rapport more than anything else. When they say, oh man, I don't have to be perfect because my coach is not perfect, which may be the assumption when they come into the session with you, like, hey, Coach Misha knows it all. So I'm good. I'm with the expert on my life. No, listen, I'm getting it together myself. So let me rephrase that.
I've asked clients as well that I've coached, like, hey, like I'm all like after I've held silence for a little bit, I'm like, hey, like I heard what you said. Can you give me a few moments to sort of think about the kind of question I want to ask? Because I feel like right now if I just spoke and said something, I wouldn't be as articulate, or I wouldn't have the question that I wanted. Can you give me like a beat? And all my clients have been totally okay with that.
I've also said, I don't know what to ask you right now. What do you want me to ask you?
That's huge, because the clients say, "Oh man, nobody's ever asked me what I think in this situation." They always just should, SHOULD. They just tell me what I should do. But when someone reflects back, like, "What do you think I should say in this space?" Like, "Oh, really?" It totally shifts the perspective.
Yeah.
It can also be something as simple when you're virtual. We're all home. We can see Brooke's little kitty there. Yeah, my cats love to come around, especially when I'm talking. They could be as simple as that kind of announcement. My dogs bark in the background. I'm so sorry. I'll put myself on mute while you're speaking so that it doesn't interrupt your flow.
I also think it's like we can have a moment where we're human too, right? So to pretend that there might not be moments where we feel emotion, where we have something human going on with us. And I think people can tell when we aren't being real and honest. So this has to come from us being willing to be real and honest and have those moments where we have to maybe pause for ourselves. Can we pause here for a moment? Or maybe it's one of those things where you're not in the right space as a coach to be the best coach in that situation. So you be open and honest with your client and say, "Hey, today I am not in a space where I can do this." I'm just being that open and honest. You don't have to give them all the reasons why, but just it's letting them know we too are human, and being honest about it, and being as transparent as we can.